Hey, LinkedIn, Bill Caskey here. Glad you're here today. 7 mistakes that keep us stuck in the commodity dungeon. I don't want any of you to be in the commodity dungeon. We've all been there. We know what it seems like, feels like, looks like. We want to stay out of it. And a commodity dungeon is basically where you are price shopped or where your value is not properly understood by the customer or the prospect. And because of that, they either don't buy or they want a discount or they don't see your value. So this is not just about price shopping. It's about, we have a tendency, I think, as buyers to reduce everything to the simplest common denominator. And sometimes that's price, sometimes it's not. But you as a value provider have to be competent and adept at getting people out of that single focus mindset, whatever that is. So we're going to talk about 7 mistakes that we make today. I'm really glad you're here. We do this every Friday at 8:30-ish. We've been on probably about 6 weeks straight, so I'm proud of myself. Been getting up early on Friday and doing this. It's not like I usually sleep till 10, but between working out and doing all those morning things, this seems like a perfect time. So we'd love it if you would comment. If you have a question, I will come back in later. I'm not going to be answering a lot of questions here because it takes me off. What I really want to do is share ideas with you. So I won't answer them here, but I will answer them later. So if you have a question or comment, if you have a topic suggestion, love to hear that. And this has been LinkedIn Live has been a really good business builder for us. We started here doing it about 3 months ago, first of the year, and we've generated probably 5 or 6 really high quality conversations that we have. One client has already engaged with us. I'm not saying that because I want you to engage with us. I'm saying it because the live stream is a really important way for us to get our message out, and it might be good for you too. So with that, let's talk about where this all came from. You know, as someone who has been coaching and training sales teams for many years, I have seen that there is always a race to the bottom. What used to be easy to command a premium now is not as easy. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that there's always tends to be a default to the bottom where price is the only thing buyers look at. And I don't think it's only price now. I think it's ROI. I think it's a lot of issues that buyers look at, and you have to have your best game plan available so that you can go in and command a premium where that's necessary. So the reason I talk about mistakes is because I think if we stop making the mistakes, we will automatically get better at this idea of commanding a premium. And I know some of you and some people that I've talked to said, don't talk about mistakes. It's kind of negative. Well, okay. But if I'm seeking diet help because I want to lose 20 pounds, if the dude says, look, you just do more of this and more of this and more of that, yet I keep eating sugar because that's a mistake, I want my coach to say, first mistake is you eat too much sugar. Just stop that and watch what happens to your weight. This is firsthand knowledge too. I know what happens to my weight when I stop sugar. So I think the whole idea of addressing mistakes is really important. And I think if we got better at that, we would be able to multiply our revenue. So mistake number 1 that we make is our offer is very unclear. If you're a CEO or VP of sales, circulate around your sales team over the next 48 hours and ask each one of your people, tell me about our offer. And by offer, I mean your solution. What does it look like to work with you, to engage with you? If you're a consultant, advisor, what's your offer? If somebody says, yes, I want to work with you, what happens? Are we clear about that? Most companies aren't. I've spoken to many firms over the last 2 or 3 years talking about this idea of offer fluency. I just call it offer fluency. Are we fluent in proclaiming and explaining our offer? And the reason it's a problem is because if we can't do it, if we don't understand it and can't articulate it, what's the hope of our customer understanding it? It's 0. And then you look at closing percentages that are 15 to 20%, and you say, what's the problem there? Are we not talking to the right people? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's our offer is just unclear. So I would say clarify your offer. It's one of the strategies that I think you can really make a lot of progress with if you just get better at it. Why does it happen? I think it happens because we just don't take the time. So many sales teams don't take the time. You're out busy, you're busy making calls, making stuff happen. You don't take the time to really work on your offer. I've got a program called the 2X Group, and in that group, one of the first things we do is we work on our offers. And it's amazing how many times after the 2 week, we spend 2 weeks on it, how many times people say, I got something of enormous value here. If you don't understand your offer, you don't understand the value you bring. And if you don't understand the value you bring, how are you going to explain it to somebody? So that's number one, clear offer. All right, number two, you have given your prospect no destination. They don't know where you're taking them. They don't know what's possible. They don't know the options on how to get to what's possible. There's no explicit destination that your customer has told you that they want to get to. Maybe they've even confided in you. Maybe it's a confiding kind of thing. But at some point, they have to have the confidence in you to take them to this promised land. And if you've never explicitly talked about it with them, they don't have the confidence. You sound like everybody else. Here's what we can do. Deliverable, service, feature, benefit, no destination. So the mistake we make is we don't include the destination in any kind of discussion we have. Why don't we? I think we're afraid that, well, if we promise something, we promise a destination. I'm not talking about a promise. I'm talking about, have you asked your customer, look, when all is said and done, I like the quote, when all is said and done, more is said than done. Who said that? Anyway, it's a British dude, really good. I wish I could attribute. I didn't say it, he said it. What's his name? Rob Moore. When all is said and done, more is said than done. But we're afraid of promising things. This is not promise. This is us asking them, where ultimately do you want to be? And it's us saying to them, look, I know you said you want to be here. I think you could get further. When I talk to a VP of sales and I say, what do you want your close rate to be? It's like, well, it's 20 now. I'd like it to be 25. And I'm like, it could be 50. Why are you limiting yourself? Well, we've just never been there. Okay, but would you agree that it would be useful if it was 50? Oh my God, if it were 50%, we'd be on cloud nine. Okay, well, let's shoot for that. So you, as a guide and a high-paid helper along your customer's journey, have to be the one that helps them fashion this destination. Because they don't know on their own, they don't know what's possible. All right, so number three, there's no map to follow to get there. There's no map. So let's say you ask them what their destination is, what the ideal outcome is. You help them fashion that. You're savvy at that. That's good. Everybody's clear. Now what's the roadmap? How are you going to help them get there? What is your unique mechanism, your unique procedure, process, vehicle, mechanism? What's the unique mechanism that's going to help them get there? Unique mechanism, something that Mad Men, the guy who was David Ogilvy, who was kind of the origin of Mad Men. He was kind of what the TV show was based on, the series. He was an advertising guy. And he came up with this concept of you need a unique mechanism. If you're going to market your product as something unique, you need to have a mechanism that helps the customer get from where they are to where they want to be. If you don't have that, go to your marketing. Well, your marketing department should be coming up with that. Now, most marketing departments are awful. They don't think about stuff like this. They think about brand colors and, social media posting. If you don't have a unique mechanism, then how are you going to explain your uniqueness? And in many ways, the unique mechanism is the vehicle that gets them from where they are to where they want to be. So if you don't have a map, you're screwed. Number 4, you get too attached to the outcome. You get too attached to the sale, to the result for you, to the result of, the deal comes in, the money. You get attached to that. What happens when you're attached? We've talked about this ad nauseum on our podcasts and on my YouTube channel and on this LinkedIn Live. What happens is you cut corners and you vault over parts of the process that are critical. I was with a client today, and he is well trained. This guy is really good at what he does. His name is John, and he'll probably watch this. He'll know who I'm talking about. But John's managers are not so well trained. And he says they go out or go on Zoom calls, and the manager just starts talking about all the things the prospect can get when they do business with them, and there's no process to get them there. So that he says the prospect's like, yeah, no, not now. We don't need that, or I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody's very unclear and obscure about it. John's very clear about what the prospect gets. What's the roadmap that gets them there? And these CEOs and leadership types, they don't think about sales in the right way. So if you're going to bring your leader out on a sales call or in the sales process, make sure you school them. Make sure you train them and teach them. Say, look, I know your temptation is to just talk about how great we are. And we are great. My school of thought is that we're going to lead this customer down this path gradually, patiently, procedurally, so that we get them to the final result, which is where we decide together whether we're going to do business or not. So don't listen to your manager if he or she says, oh, let's just go out and take him to lunch and see if we can get a deal. Nah, that's not how it works. Come on, you know that. It's not scalable. Number 5, in a lot of organizations, there's no attention to skills. There's no attention to the skills required to command a premium and to get out of the commodity dungeon. One of the skills, detachment to outcomes. Now you may say, well, that's not really a skill. That's more of an attitude. Okay, fair. But if you can't do it, and if it's not something you can behave your way into, then you're going to be attached. And everything's going to look like a yes. Some things are no's. You have to be good at being judicious yourself on what you pursue and what you don't pursue. So what are the skills? What are the skills you need to have? Well, one is financial acumen. Your people or you have to have a financial conversation with your prospect. I had a financial conversation with a potential customer client about a week ago. And we were talking about his issues and some of the challenges he was having with his sales team. He has, 20, 25 people, a couple of managers in there sprinkled in. And I said, what's this problem costing you to have? He said, I have no idea. I said, well, let's work through it. He said, okay. I said, what's your closing rate right now? He said, right now it's about 12% of deals proposed. What's your average deal size? 50,000. How many of those realistically do you think should close? He said, probably 30% of them based on what we're doing. I said, okay, if you went from 12 to 30, that's a 2.5 time improvement. He said, yep. I said, okay, 2.5 times 50,000. How long does that customer stay with you? He said, probably about 5 years. I said, okay, it's not a $50,000 sale, then it's a $250,000 sale. If you look at lifetime value, I know my math is quick here and I'm talking quickly. But he said, no, you're exactly right. So I said, if you can get your numbers from 12 to 30 over the course of a year, how many deals do you propose? And he told me, we got to a $2 to $3 million problem. Well, that requires financial acumen. I had to know what questions to ask. You have to know what questions to ask. If you're not getting to a financial result that they want, that they can't get to without you, you're only doing half the work. There's other skills. I'm not going to go into those. Number 6, you have no compelling story. What I mean by no compelling story is the story you tell your prospects doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't lead them anywhere. It doesn't lead them to better rapport with you. It doesn't lead them to say, man, I want what you helped that client get. Sometimes these stories are about your personal story, why you got into the business, why the company does what it does, how the company started. That's called a story of origin. You could have a story of origin. Your company could have a story of origin. But the best story is the conversion story. And that's a story that helps you convert that person from a prospect to a customer. That story has to have emotion in it. It's got to have some observations or what you noticed about the market. It has to have some kind of personal stakes in that story. Like in my story, I would say, I was a very average to below average salesperson in my 20s. It just wasn't very good. A lot of reasons for that. One was I never got any coaching. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got a book full of prospects and $1 million quota and said, here, have at it, man. We'll send you to Peoria for some Caterpillar tractor training occasionally, but we're not going to teach anything about how buyers make decisions. Oh no, we're not going to teach you that. You need to know that. Well, I went to college and I even had a psychology course or two, and I never heard that. So now I'm on my own. And the problem was that I never knew how to do that. And so I would lose deal after deal, and I would go from company to company thinking it was the company problem. Really, it was my problem. And it wasn't until I came up with a framework of how I felt the sales process should run that I started to succeed. And I failed until then. And what I found was this process, this unique mechanism, is the thing that works. So that's my story. And that's how I tee it up. That's called a conversion story. It's a way I can help people convert from suspect to prospect. But the story is huge. It's important, and we don't spend enough time on it. All right, number 7. How are we doing on time here? Number 7, we ignore media. You ignore digital media. I heard a story the other day that the S&P 500 used to be, 30 years ago, it used to be made up of companies that were 75% physical assets, real estate companies, Boeing, plane companies, physical assets. Today, it's about 60% digital assets that make up the S&P. What are your digital assets? I'll wait for you to answer. What digital assets have you created in the past week? This is a digital asset. Are you doing LinkedIn Live? Are you shooting any kind of digital video? Why not? Because you want to show up and you want to have your labor be the whole leverage point. Because labor is not very leverageable unless you're hiring people to replace you or to do what you do. The digital asset is the most important thing you can do. So what are you creating any digital media that goes along with the sales process? I was just talking with a person who has a brokerage company. They do buyer and seller of certain practices, and I do work in that industry for some reason in Australia and also here. And I said, where are you using digital media? And she said, well, really not. I said, well, it seems like you should. She goes, where should I use it? And so when a buyer of a practice reaches out to this company, they don't know who this broker is, the broker should have a page that they send them to that has some information, has a video of the owner, has a video of teaching something about here are the trends in this practice, here's things to look out for when you're buying a practice or a company like this. You should have one page that has everything on it. Not so they have to go traipse around YouTube and find all these things. Have it all on one page. Be courteous. Be generous with your information, but consolidate it on one page. You can call this your library or new to us, ? Or new prospect orientation page. I mean, you can come up with a lot of names for it. None of those are very good, but you got the idea. So that's how you can use media. So now every time you get connected or contacted by someone cold, you can send them to your warm-up page. I like that better. Your warm-up page. So are you using digital media? If you're not commanding a premium. You're getting stuck in the commodity dungeon because nobody's doing that. You could be the first one to do it in your marketplace, and that's how you separate yourself and become unique. All right, I see we've got some comments here, and again, I will answer these after I sign off, but hopefully this has been helpful for you. These 7 mistakes, I think if you really execute them, and if you're a leader of a company and you're inclined to want to talk to me, you can go to scheduleacallwithcaskey.com. We'll put it in the chat here. Travis, can you put that in the chat, please? Scheduleacallwithcaskey.com. I'd be happy to get on the phone and talk about your team. But you all need to have, if you have a sales team, if you're not paying attention to this, these are the 7 things that if you were to stop doing these things, and I know some of these are like ignoring media, that seems like more of a to-do than a stop doing, but stop ignoring it and make it a part of your sales cycle. I think you'll find a lot of value in that. All right? So I'd love to hear what other topics you want. I've got topics picked out for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but I can always change them. Usually I write them like I wrote this down yesterday after I had a chance to think about it. So hopefully you'll find value. I'll see you next time. I hope you have an awesome weekend.